In the 18th century, a quiet revolution was brewing. Machines were becoming more complex. They needed more parts to work. These parts, like nuts and bolts, needed to fit together perfectly. This is where standardization became crucial. Before standardization, each workshop had its own way of making things. A bolt from one place might not fit a nut from another. This made it difficult and time-consuming to build or repair machines. Imagine trying to build a giant clock and the gears don't mesh. The lack of uniformity hindered progress. Engineers and inventors had grand ideas, but their creations were limited by the inability to mass-produce interchangeable parts. Something had to change for technology to advance. Before machines, skilled craftsmen made nuts and bolts entirely by hand. It was a laborious and time-consuming process requiring precision and patience. First, the craftsman would heat a metal rod until it was red-hot and malleable. Then, using tools like hammers and chisels, they would painstakingly shape the metal into the desired form of a bolt. Creating the nut was no less demanding. It involved drilling a perfectly sized hole into a piece of metal and then shaping the hexagonal form around it. Each nut and bolt was unique, a testament to the craftsman's skill. While this method produced functional fasteners, it was inherently slow and expensive. The quality of each nut and bolt depended heavily on the individual craftsman's skill and attention to detail. Producing nuts and bolts by hand had significant limitations. The process was inherently slow, making it difficult to meet the growing demands of industry. Each piece was unique, often slightly different from the next, leading to inconsistencies in fit and function. This lack of uniformity posed a major problem for the assembly of machines. Parts could not be easily replaced, as each one was made to fit specifically with the others. Imagine having to find a specific nut to fit a specific bolt among thousands. A logistical nightmare. The limitations of hand production became increasingly evident as the Industrial Revolution gained momentum. Factories were being built and machines became more complex, demanding greater precision and faster production times. Section 4. Enter the Innovator. William Wyatt's ingenious machine. In 1760, an English inventor named William Wyatt recognized the limitations of handcrafting nuts and bolts. He envisioned a way to automate the process to create uniform, interchangeable parts at a scale never before seen. This vision led him to invent the world's first nut and bolt making machine. Wyatt's invention was a game changer. It promised to revolutionize manufacturing, enabling the mass production of standardized fasteners for the first time in history. His machine was a marvel of engineering for its time, incorporating several innovative mechanisms to automate a complex process. Wyatt's invention was not simply a technological leap, it was a paradigm shift. It paved the way for mass production and the assembly line, concepts that would define the Industrial Revolution and shape the modern world. Section 5. The Machine's Marvel. How Wyatt Automated the Process. Wyatt's machine, though groundbreaking, was surprisingly simple in its design. It used a series of rotating cutters and dies to shape the metal rods into perfect bolts. The machine worked by first feeding a metal rod into a holding device. Then a rotating cutter would shape the head of the bolt. Next, the rod was moved to a threading section where a die, a tool for cutting external threads, carved the spiral grooves that would allow the nut to screw onto the bolt. A separate part of the machine created the nuts, again using a die to cut the internal threads. Wyatt's machine was revolutionary because it could produce identical nuts and bolts much faster than any craftsman could achieve by hand. This invention ushered in a new era of precision and efficiency in manufacturing. Section 6. A revolution in making from workshops to factories. The impact of Wyatt's invention was profound. It transformed the way things were made. moving production from small workshops to large factories. Mass production became a reality, making goods cheaper and more accessible to the public. Standardized nuts and bolts were essential for the rise of mass production. They allowed for interchangeable parts, which meant machines could be assembled and repaired more quickly and easily. This led to a surge in the development of new machines, from clocks and sewing machines to bicycles and automobiles. The world was changing at an unprecedented pace, and it was all thanks to a simple yet ingenious invention, the nut and bolt machine.